but every tunnel walk is like it's separate movie. You know how they have all those Star Wars movies? So however many I did, it was different. Every time that I'm at a game, I don't get to go much, but when when I see it, I don't miss it, because it brings back memories. But it's a part of Nebraska. It's just like the sellout streak or anything else, or the, releasing of the balloons and stuff like that. It's a big part of Nebraska history, and something that obviously I never forgot.
This is the Boys Down Bad podcast, and we are honored to welcome on a true Nebraska football legend, a three-time national championship winner, a Butkus Awards semi-finalist, and a fifth-round pick by the Buffalo Bills in 1999. Give it up for Jay Foreman. Yeah.
Hey, man, that's about as much as applause I need these days, man. That's when you almost get to 50, it's all good, man. I appreciate you guys having me on, man. And I want to say before we get started, I followed you guys, like, I think from your very first one, you know what I'm saying? And you guys have done well, man. Keep up with you guys. I know we were going to try to hook up last year and do it. That's on me. But I like the stick-to-itiveness, if that's a word. You guys have done really good, man. I'm looking to, see how far you guys can take it as well.
Hey, we appreciate
it.
Yep. Thank you so much. And thank you for coming on. We're super excited to talk to you today. We got a lot of football to cover, but first I was going through all your social medias. You're a pretty big golf guy, aren't you?
I don't play as much as because the bodies broke down, but I like to watch. And, the one thing about sports, I guess most professional athletes, they really like the sports that they can never play. So for me, it was basketball and obviously golf after. I like to watch it. I was a big Tiger Woods fan, but a big golf fan in general. So it's a good week. It's Masters week and it's Easter. So it's this is like a, pre-Father's Day for me, that I get the weekend to watch the real guys do it.
Absolutely. That was my next question. Do you have a Masters pick for us?
I normally would say Scotty Scheffler, but I think the Masters is hard to repeat. And, I want to do the asterisks. If Jason Day stays healthy, I think he can do it. I think he's starting to come into form, and generally who's been playing well recently, I think he'd do well. Scotty Scheffler is tough, man. I mean, he's a dude that's the real deal, but I'm really pulling for Rory. It'd be cool to see him get the Grand Slam. But either way, hopefully it just comes and gets exciting on that back nine on Sunday. And that's that's what everybody tunes in for on Sunday evenings.
Yeah, we were just talking, and you just said Jason Day has no chance.
Yeah. I
well, he's always hurt, man. My man, he'll go play a tournament 16 under, get out there and take one swing, then he looks like me, then he's done for like 2 years, man. We gotta get him a back brace or something, man. He's a little brittle little dude, man. You gotta get some toughness, give him some milk.
Yeah, I heard him talk and I didn't love what I was hearing, so I don't know.
Oh,
Jason Day, but if he's healthy, never know.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Golf's one of those things you got to speak it into existence. So if he's speaking it into the ground, then then we might have to change my pick.
Hey, you never know. We love it. So let's start our football talk with your career. Can you tell us how you originally got to Nebraska and how your commitment story went?
It was a little odd story. Oddly enough, I grew up. Obviously, my dad played. Obviously, pretty stellar career. Should be in the Hall of Fame. Hopefully, here pretty soon. So, Monty Kiffin, who was the originator of the Black Shirts, was the defensive coordinator for the Vikings. So I grew up with Lane Kiffin. So I knew Lane. Lane ain't changed a bit. So that's the way he's always been. And so I always tell people, me and Lane were the OGs of the ball boys, and then Larry Fitzgerald took it. Now he's a Hall of Famer. So we're the OGs of that. But to be honest with you, I was my dad never really put pressure on me, and I was a good football player and never went to any camps. So I was getting recruited, but not really that tough. And Lane Kiffin's high school, had Lane, who actually, obviously went Division I. They had two other Division I guys that went to Minnesota, then one more that went to an Ivy League school, but he definitely could have went, Power 5, what they call it today. So they were pretty loaded. And so we played them on homecoming. And I wasn't getting a lot of notice, just kind of really, to be honest with you, it was like North Dakota State and stuff like that. And, a couple little, I call them copy and paste letters where they just get in and just stamping it, it didn't have any original signatures on it from like Kansas State and Missouri. Yeah. Nothing that I'm really was excited about. And even Minnesota wasn't recruiting me. So we're playing them on their homecoming. And it's a pretty, it's Minnesota. It's a cold game. And Nick Saban's there. Coach Osborne or Nebraska, or actually it was Coach Young. All the Big Ten schools were there, and I asked my coach. I said, "Hey, man, are they are they there to see me? I'm thinking I'm pretty good. You know what I mean?" And he was like, "Nah, but if you want to get noticed, tonight's the night, baby. You know what I'm saying?" Yeah. So I was like, "Oh, say less." Like they say today, say less. Things went out there, and I'd been playing good, but not really getting a lot of tread. And that's their, Lane's high school was the one that was thought of as, they're good at everything. And went out there and, I hit them boys up for about 180 on the ground, a pick, knocked a couple dudes out. And next thing you know,
love that.
Hey, next thing you know, come Monday, Coach Osborne with his old dry self. Hey, Jay Foreman, this is Coach Osborne. You know what I mean? Like, you played a good game. I was like, finally. And it kind of took off from there. And, my dad had went to Miami in 1968. So he was the first, his class was the first class that they, African-Americans were allowed to go to Miami. And all my uncles went there. So I grew up as a Miami fan. So kind of like they offered me at the beginning of recruitment, never really heard from them. But then, then it kind of took off after that Nebraska game. And, the rest is history. I really liked Michigan State. I really liked Northwestern. I had Gary Barnett at the time. A funny story about that is, Northwestern's there. And, that was the year they went to the Rose Bowl. And they had, I was like, oh, they got, Chicago. They had these black uniforms. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool, right? And so I said, hey, coach, look, I'm a B student. You know what I mean? I'm a B okay. That's it. I said, hi, the pressure is ramped up on this ACT that I'm about to take. So, how you going to get me in? You know what I mean? In Northwestern, I'm thinking in Stanford. And he was like, look, man, we'll get you in. Right. And I was like, oh, I just sat back. I'm like, cool, you'll get me in. My dad stood up, was like, yeah, but how you going to keep him in there? Because, he knew it was going to be too hard. So that was pretty cool. And then, Coach Osborne and those guys were coming for their in-home visit right after. And they were leaving the next day, I think, to go down to the Orange Bowl to play Florida State. Good visit. And, he really knew everything about my dad and about my grandfather, that played baseball in the Negro League. So he knew about my whole family history. My uncle that wanted to come to Nebraska but played at Cincinnati. He was an offensive lineman. So he kind of chipped away at my dad, and really did a good job. Him, Coach Brown, Coach Young, rest in peace. And, then I came down on a visit and I loved it. And, I wanted, originally was thinking I wanted to go to Miami, but then I'm thinking, Nebraska, winning all the time, going to a good bowl game. Really my expectations coming to college was to get a good education, work as hard as I can, not have any regrets, and hopefully play by my senior year in college. And obviously worked out a little bit better than that, but it wasn't the former NFL superstar son's recruitment, but I wouldn't change it for the world.
What was it like growing up with a dad who was so highly touted as a football guy? Like, was football your dream since you were young?
No, to be honest with you, basketball was like, my dad, first of all, I always mess with him. Was like, my dad was a world-class athlete. He went to the Olympic trials in the 300 IM hurdles, and, he was a phenomenal athlete. And I'm the runt of the family. I'm 6'2", and my dad, everybody else is 6'3" and above, and, so forth and so on. So, me and him grew up, and, it wasn't easy, just because of the pressure, but I was a basketball player. And then my dad broke it down to me. And I remember Cincinnati was recruiting me with Wichita State and Temple, and I remember reading an article in Sports Illustrated about Temple where John Chaney was they'd had to ride the subway at 4:30 for 6 o'clock practice. Hey, a brother like to sleep in. I'm like, nope, right? And then Cincinnati, they had like Nick Van Exel and those dudes. And my dad was like, hey, look, man, you could basketball, you okay, but you ain't there, man. This football thing is easy. This is legacy. So then, So it brought us together, pretty tight. We had to go through the ups and downs, and I didn't really get to live the, I guess, childhood like everybody else, but me and my dad's bond, was pretty strong, and it made me have to mature and see things that maybe normally wouldn't be exposed to. But I think that also helped me make a transition into college better. You know what I mean? I knew about expectations. I knew about I can't do the same things that the regular student couldn't do. I can't, so I think as much, and many times it's tough because people, either are jealous or just don't want you to succeed. I think it really, made me focus and really helped me out, both in college and after that.
Awesome.
Yeah, so we see a lot of like what goes on recruiting visits nowadays. It's really flashy. It's pictures, it's uniforms. What were recruiting visits like when you were being recruited?
Man, when I came to Nebraska, that was like my first big one, and I went on an unofficial to Miami. My grandma had bought me this red sweater. Man, I don't have any pictures of it. So it was like a red, it was like a red cashmere sweater. So I think I played basketball games. So I had a white shirt on, black tie, red cashmere sweater. So I came down here, man, looking like, I went to like prep school, and everybody else had jeans on and sweatshirts. And it was cool, man. It was like, I kind of kept to myself. So it came out, they take you out a little bit, show you around campus, and show you, some good times. Went to a couple of parties, nothing big. And then they take you around the academics and stuff. We didn't have what they have now, pictures and stuff like that. But what I really liked about Nebraska is that they, academics was huge for in their program. I think they, really put an emphasis on that and were serious about it. And I felt like, getting into the weight program, it would help me out because I never lifted weights until I got here. And so I knew I had, a lot to do, to catch up. But I felt like this is the place for it. And Nebraska was already, well ahead of everybody in their weight program. But they're fun, man. Like I went to Wyoming, because I had a friend that played out there. There was no chance I was going. And he was an All-American receiver out there, but they took us way up in these mountains, and we went snowmobiling. That was probably cool. I went to Michigan State, and I went to Wisconsin. I did everything. I had I'll tell you like this: it goes everywhere from PG to X-rated type of stuff, like on these recruiting visits. But Nebraska was the place for me. 5.5 hours from Minneapolis, and a powerhouse. And to be honest with you, now that we're in the Big Ten, my second choice was Iowa. And I was on a recruiting visit with Tim Dwight. And here's the difference that it came down to. Coach Osborne's playing for his first national championship, where they end up obviously not winning, which probably they should have, won that game with Florida State, refs or whatever.
Yep.
Hayden Fry is the head coach at Iowa. They're not even going to a bowl game. Coach Osborne came to my house, into my school. Hayden Fry didn't. The difference between a champion and a chump. And that's why, I have the distinct hatred for Iowa. But I almost went there, but I think Nebraska was obviously the best choice for me.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. So obviously a big thing that has come to the game over the past couple of years is NIL. What are your thoughts on NIL? Do you think it's helping athletes and grow the game, or do you think it's kind of hurting college football?
I think it's doing both. I think that it's really good for players to be able to, to benefit off of their, name, image, and likeness. And I think it's long overdue. I felt like if it was really handled, even back when I played, just think of Tommy Frazier, the Peter brothers, and Grant Wistrom, Mike Roach, all those guys. If you'd had something in place then, we wouldn't have the problems right now. But now it's like a free for all. So I'm all for the players being able to benefit of it. And I feel like, look, if they're paying, you need to go play, but I think the negative part is it's taken away from the team concept, because sometimes players are more focused on that versus playing. And you see it, in every single sport. You might have a good year at Nebraska, or just say you have a good year even at Nebraska, or you have a good few games at Nebraska. Then all of a sudden you start looking around for other places. So the loyalty is gone. Now, granted, there is no loyalty, especially in the NFL, which I, obviously grew up in. But in college, especially say like if I was from Nebraska and I have an NIL deal that's, I can sleep good at night and I can expand on that, chasing a couple extra dollars isn't very smart considering I can make a legacy here. So I think that's what's really hurting it. And I think a lot of guys are getting overpaid for not doing anything. Again, I look, if somebody was going to offer me a whole bunch of money, I mean, I'm going to take it. But I think, there's a little bit of lack of return on investment. So I think if there was some sort of structure in there, I know you can't do pay for play, but like a step process or something, I think it'd be better. But ultimately, look, it is where it is. I hope that what these NIL companies are teaching these players to set themselves up for the future, because if you compare a kid that say he makes $300,000, $400,000 in NIL money at a college, he's 50 steps ahead of somebody that went to school for 6 years. Even if they went to medical school or go to be a dentist, they're starting in debt. You're starting way ahead, regardless if you make it to the NFL. So, if you're going to do it, I think, that can separate, you from, say 2 schools. We got something in place for you right now. You can kind of go out and do your, have money that, you got in your pocket, but we're really setting you up because we care for you. So I think if you could get some sort of partnership that way, I think it would change the landscape of NIL. And then also I think it would change the mindset of the players, and not be so focused on themselves.
Yeah, 100%. Those are good points.
Yeah. You kind of talked about a couple of guys. Of the guys that you played with, if they played in the era now with NIL, who's going to be making the most money?
Well, I mean, of course, Tommy Frazier, it was probably the greatest quarterback in Nebraska history. He would do well just because he's Tommy, and especially with the way the game's played now, that's pretty much, the way he played. Defensively, I'd probably say, you had the Peter brothers, Peter built and stuff like that. Grant Wistrom, and then the Ralph and Mike Brown, because the Brown brothers. And then I think a lot of the pipeline would have done well, because of the offensive line. And then like Terrell Farley, because he had that unique personality, and I mean, I think guys would have had a nice little deal, and I think everybody would have benefited from it. And the one thing I think we would have done is made sure everybody else was taken care of. I think that, that was one of the things that really separated us. We always looked out for each other, but I think those guys with big personalities would have done well, and they were great players as well.
Mm-hmm. I guess kind of when you were talking about guys might be looking out for themselves with NIL, how much could that really like hurt a locker room? Say if like maybe like in Alabama where, Bryce Young's making millions and,
right.
An offensive tackle might be making 100,000. That's a huge difference. How much can that really like hurt a team?
I think it doesn't hurt a team like that, because those guys know pecking order. They know, and Bryce Young is the best quarterback in the nation. So I don't think there's any jealousy there. And plus, those guys are there to play football first. NIL is secondary. Whereas, like, I think if you're at a school that isn't winning, NIL can become the focus because it's an easy, soft landing spot. You know what I mean? You go out there and get your butt kicked, but man, I got a $10,000 appearance here coming up on Monday. Everything's all good. Losing isn't that bad, right?
Yeah.
Whereas Alabama, every game is you're playing in the pressures for all the marbles. So your mindset is so fixated on the team end goal. What you're getting paid isn't first on your mind. So I think it just depends on the team, and it depends on the leadership. And if you have players, I'm gonna tell you like this: sure, there might be some jealousy, because of course, if somebody is making $1 million, I feel like if I'm the best linebacker, I feel like I could get $1 million. But also, I think if guys are good players, good teammates, good people, they don't mind it, especially when you have a quarterback making that type of money, if that's the case.
100%. All right, so we got to talk about your national championships. Obviously, you're a part of 3 national championship teams. Which was your favorite and why?
Oh, that's a hard question, man. That's a great question. That's a hard question, man. 95, I think, is the best team ever assembled, right? Mm-hmm. I was a starter, but 97, I was a factor. So I would say 97 just because I was a junior. I've been through some some situations. I was a big factor. I was a secondary leader, essentially a captain the next year. And that was a team where I felt like, well, 95 was great as well. But I was a young pup, man. To be honest with you, I was a starter out there. But I'm gonna tell you guys something, man. I was scared as I'll get out every game because all I did want to do is I want to make the plays that I need to make, okay, and not be a minus out there. I want to be a factor and get out the way and let them the older guys eat. So it's a little bit different. I think 95 is the best team I ever been on. Obviously in college, but 97 probably meant a little bit more because you win 2, lose 96. Felt like I shouldn't have had to been a co-starter in 96. I think I was driven to another level as far as intensity, and to be able to be a part of it, I think probably 97 probably ranks up there a little bit higher.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, and then Coach Osborne, what was it like playing for him? And then I guess what's something we obviously know he's such a great coach. What was it that some people might not know that he did so well?
Playing for Coach Osborne, when you're playing for him, you just look at him as coach. But as I've gotten older, you realize he was like a father figure, for me, and what he meant to me, can't really put in words. I'll tell you like this: you didn't want to disappoint him, but man, I would run through a brick wall for him any day of the week. You know what I'm saying? I would say this: playing for Coach Osborne, he was hard on us, but he was extremely fair. A funny story about him, man. We used to walk back from the Cook Pavilion over to the regular stadium, and man, it was hot as all get out. And I'm, coming from Minnesota, and I remember, man, I could barely pick my feet up. I'm tired as all get out. Coach Osborne about to go for his workout. I said, "Dang, Coach." I said, "You got it out of us today. You breaking us down. You bringing us to the brink of destruction." He looks at me and he's like, "Yeah." He's like, by that first game, I'm gonna have you built back up though. And then just started running, took off on me, man. I was like, you know what? He's all right. The one thing I would say about Coach Osborne is that he was somewhat of a prophet. He kind of kept everything simple. And the one thing I learned from him is that he said it's easy to be a leader when everything's going good. But what type of leader are you when you got to look down, the barrel of the storm? And you're gonna put it in neutral, or you're gonna put it in, overdrive. And I never forgot that. And some of the lessons I learned from him and the situations that he put us in, I still draw back on to this day. So what he's done is a lifelong, and I'm myself and many players will tell you this, lifelong of leadership, from him, and he cared about all of us as well. And that's something that really stuck out to me as well.
It's awesome. So one of my favorite things, obviously being a Husker fan and going to games since I was a kid, is the tunnel walk. I just get chills every time I'm there watching it. Did the tunnel walk ever get old, or did you get just as amped up every time you walk through?
I'm telling you what, every tunnel walk is like it's separate movie. You know how they have all those Star Wars movies? So however many I did, it was different, and from your first one, and then all the way to your last one, which you never forget. It's its own animal because you see different people as you're walking out there. As you get older, you kind of get up closer to the front of the line. And what's more important to you when you're a younger player? Are you just hyping up the crowd, or is that kind of like when you start to lock in? Then my senior year, I'm a captain. So I'm out there and now I'm seeing everybody else in the position that I was in for the last 3 years. It's definitely a great tradition. We were the first ones with the Jumbotron and all that stuff. And every time that I'm at a game, I don't get to go much, but when I see it, I don't miss it, because it brings back memories. But it's just it's a part of Nebraska. It's just like the sellout streak or anything else, or the releasing of the balloons and stuff like that. It's a big part of Nebraska history, and something obviously I never forgot.
What was your first tunnel walk like? Was it just insane?
It was insane, man. It was like in slow motion, and it was exciting because I was a red shirt, so I got to see it. But then when you get to live it, it's a big part of you getting ready for a game. And I was starting as a redshirt freshman, so you don't I'm trying to enjoy the participate in the tunnel walk, but I gotta get laser like focused because the defense might be up 1st. And everything goes in slow motion. And then once you get kind of right, and then they introduce you, and then the crowd goes bananas. And it's awesome, man. And then sometimes you see some what's really cool is, I remember there was a kid, I actually met him later as he was an adult. His name was Kyle. I saw him when he was a little, every year I'd see him, he'd be in the same spot. Like at one point in time during the year, he kept getting bigger, 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 and so it's pretty
awesome.
cool to, when you go through and you go through it, because it's a fan experience, but it's the players. It's a big deal, man. And, that's a part of, being on the, the varsity or whatever you want to call it in the travel squad.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so obviously you have 3 national titles. Is there one moment that's like your favorite memory as a Husker other than those 3, or is it one of those 3 national titles?
I mean, those are obviously, the jubilation and when you win it all and you play for it. There, I mean, I'll tell you like this, that, there is nothing like preparing for a big game. You know what I'm saying? I mean, the bigger the game, the better I liked it. I want you at your best. And so, when you hit the pinnacle and the jubilation of doing it and completing it with your teammates, it's just that feeling of walking in the locker room. It's not that I did it, it's we did it, And so those are the memories that stick out the most. But one of the coolest memories I ever had, we were down at the Fiesta Bowl, and we beat the brakes off of Florida. So the game's always a formality, we're up 62 to whatever, we just, we thinking about like, we're going to be able to hit the club or, and, when you're out there, we already knew we had won probably like midway through the third quarter. Man, I get a tap on my shoulder. My dad's out there and we got a cool picture together, man. And so it was kind of like, it was like everything came full circle. You asked about what it's like growing up. It was as much as a national championship for him as me, just because of, we were, in it together. So that's probably the coolest moment I had. That was the first one or the second one. And then when we beat Tennessee, he had came in the locker room and brought, one of my little neighbors, or our neighbor from back home, was down there on a family vacation in the locker room, got to take pictures and stuff. So we've had some pretty cool father-son moments in those championship moments, and those are things you never forget.
Absolutely. That's super cool. So thank you for sharing about your experience as a Husker. Let's talk about the team this year. Obviously, new coach, Coach Rhule. What were your initial thoughts on the hire, and have those thoughts changed at all through the start of spring ball?
I mean, I was like, well, I mean, first, look, Matt Rhule has his resume of, coming in and turning around some things. Obviously, he's done it at 2 different places in 2 different situations, and so he's a good coach. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I knew a little bit more about him than say the regular fan or alumni is because one of my best friends was on his staff in Temple, was a GA for him, and spoke highly of him. Spoke highly of his attention to detail and his ability to motivate different types of players, his eye for talent, as far as to go and see a guy and develop him and have a plan in place for each individual player. I felt early along in the process that he was somebody that they would look at, just because of, again, his resume, how he could probably fit. He played at Penn State, kind of like Nebraska. So I didn't really have a problem with it. I just want to win. Or, I want them to win. I mean, I want enough. I mean, so, I don't really care who is the coach. Really, my initial thoughts was just pure disappointment from before. I mean, that's it. You feel let down, disappointed. You wish it worked. It's a former teammate, regardless if you're best friends with him, colleague, or whatever. Look, dude, it is not that hard. You got the world at your hands here, and it didn't work out. So when Matt came in, I was like, yeah, I can see why why we hired him. And then, what I really, see now is like he has a plan in place, went out and got right after it, brought in some new players. It seems that, like I can only go off right now. It seems like he has a plan and a type of player you know what I mean? So, every guy, look, everybody that they bring in isn't going to pan out. I mean, that's just pure numbers. But you can say, okay, I can see why Matt Rhule and staff got him, you know what I mean, or went after him. And then he's came in. It seems like the accountability is went ramped up, right? Everybody's going to come to work. Everybody's going to earn something. It's going to mean something to you. So those are the same type of things that we did. Granted, we were farther along. Obviously, it's been ingrained in Nebraska for like 20 some years before I even stepped on campus. But I think what he's trying to do is, get some just the details and the basics under control, and then let the athletic ability go. So, I think as he's went on, I think he's done a phenomenal job. I mean, you can't deny that he hasn't, been working. I know he said that that's his job, but let's be honest. I mean, it is his job, but he's doing his job. So that's why I think it's such a breath of fresh air, for a lot of people. Like, oh man, I mean, yeah, he's out in public a lot, but you know what? He's at schools. He's talking to people. He's meeting coaches. He's creating relationships with people that hadn't been there, and so he's doing a good job of representing Nebraska. And I think his expectations of the players are a lot higher than maybe they had before. And obviously, Saturdays, is going to be huge. But I think up until now, he's done everything that he was assumed to do, and then some.
Yeah. So what does Rhule kind of need to do or need to show in year one to really get Husker fans who were maybe on the fence about the Matt Rhule hire all the way bought into him in the program?
Right. I think there's nothing wrong for fans to be on the wait and see. That's fine. They, really a lot of, especially guys, fans your age, you guys been through a lot. I'm sitting up here 3 national championships, right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And before I even stepped on campus, 83, they should have probably won it. 93, they should have won it. They were probably in the, they won 2 in 70, in the 70s. So, like my experience is different than yours. So I understand for fans to be in wait and see. I think the expectation should be, see the identity that matches up with, or identity matches up with what, they've said and set forth, and then see consistent improvement. And that's it. And obviously win games. I mean, look, we can't, we going 1-11, that's not going to be, that's not good enough. And, I think, consistent improvement, and when 6 or more games, I think, people could see where we're going. I think direction, you know what I'm saying? And direction is, clear direction, clear identity has been articulated. Now you just need to see it come to fruition. The biggest thing also is as you start to go, then just make sure you always self-evaluate and be able to adjust. And I think that's what his experience, hopefully from the NFL, has done is learn from that, bring it to here, and hopefully, this thing takes off pretty quick.
Absolutely. A word that's thrown around a lot is when a team is struggling is culture. Like we got to come in, we got to get a guy who's going to change the culture. What does culture mean to you, and how does a coach actually change that? Because as a fan, you hear we need to change the culture. Okay, what does that mean?
Right. I mean, I think it's like every 2 or 3 years, it's like the catchword, right? Remember, it was identity for a while, culture, and all that. I think really what it is game plan, accountability, and follow through. And granted, all that stuff will kind of, is all encompassing, right? So if you come in and you're clear with your message, you're going to hold them accountable, you're going to work them hard, you're going to lay out the plan for what's set forth, you're around, you're accessible, it changes the culture, because it's like every single day you're infusing your culture into their veins, right? So if I only see you guys once or twice and I say, man, I want you guys to be up at 7:00, right? Tomorrow you'll be up at 7. 5 weeks later, you'll get up at 8, 9:30 because I'm not around. But I'm there every morning at 7. That's in your veins, right? That's who you are. That's changing who you are, the expectation. So if you do that early, right, and even be a little bit harder and early, stickler for the rules, you can always loosen up later. So I think that's what the culture is. And then really what people would need to understand, this is just my personal opinion, football players and athletes in generally adapt to their environment. You know what I'm saying? So if you're trying to change the culture to what what works, regardless of what it is, and you're consistent with it, then it's gonna go to that, that way. Now, look, if it's not working, you need to wiggle a little room, but you got to get it going, to a certain direction, and you got to weed out the guys that aren't, that are here just to be, I guess the guys that are okay, just being okay. Those are the guys you ain't going to win with. The guys that want to be the best that they can be and be better and work at it every day, and football means something to you, then those are the guys that'll be in the culture. And look, listen, when we played, we had guys that we had to straighten up. We did. I mean, Friction is a good thing, right? But when friction turns into fraction in a fractured team, that's when it's not good. So, yeah, we were able to win national championships. By no means was it a perfect hunky-dory locker room and everybody liked each other, right? But when the lights came on, I won't gonna let nobody mess with anybody in that locker room. And so once you guys go through it and you create that kind of togetherness of hard work, accountability, us over them, us against it, whatever it is, then then say I'm in the locker room, you two are recruited. I'm articulating this is how it's got to be. You come to Nebraska, you adapt to what we're doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know the standard when we come in. So essentially, you'll start to say, oh, that's a Nebraska player.
Yeah.
That's a Nebraska. You'd always know what a Nebraska running back looked like or lineman looked like, a DN. Then you'll be well on your way.
Obviously, that's very true. How long do you think that takes to implement into a team? Obviously, it's not going to be right away, and that's
Right.
what Husker fans want, and that's what they've always wanted.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
like,
Hey man. Hey man.
win right away. That's what we want.
Right. I know everybody. I wish we could give everybody a magic pill. And, look, everybody hates talking about the 90s. Not so bad. The 90s, 94, 95, 96, 97 was a product of 90, 91, 92, 93. It takes some time. But that's what you asked me, what we'd like to see. You'd like to see incremental changes over time. Right. And then everything is like, does winning cure that? Sure, it helps. But you got to win, kind of the right way, and so consistency is what you're going to need, and that changes the culture. Will it be done, after week 2 or 3? No. Will it be done after year 1? No. But you'd like to see year 1 or difference between year 1 to year 2 to year 3, and then once you kind of get rolling, then you'll know what's up, and you'll see it, and you'll be able to be. When you guys watch games, I watch games. You already know kind of what you're going to get. Now, teams going to have to play, say, exponentially well to beat us, or we have a bad game. Then you have that bounce back percentage that you're not going to play bad for 2 or 3 games, or the same mistakes from year 1 are happening at even a higher rate in year 3. That's all about culture. It's how you go to work every day. It's how you even go to school. It's how you dress. It's how you present yourself to people. It's how you interact with anybody that you meet. It's a way of life. You know what I mean? You can't just come to practice and decide to work hard and then go to school and be like, now I don't want to do it. It's just you're a competitor.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Has there been like one thing or one guy that's really stuck out to you through spring ball yet?
I think the guy, I'll say this. I think the guy that I'm most excited to see is Jamari Butler, right? I think he could be a good bridge from the old staff to the new. I think he's a guy that's kind of been waiting his turn. You had 3 guys that are potentially going to NFL ahead of him before. He has competition in from like MJ Sherman and a lot of the guys like Whalen, and then Chief Borders and all those guys. But one thing about Jamari is he's not afraid of competition, because he very easily could have stayed in the portal and went someplace. But he's here, he's making a name for himself. So he's the guy that's probably been the most impressive. I know, the offensive guys and all that stuff, that's, I'm going to go with defensive guys because that's how you're going to win. But I think he's a guy that, if everything goes right now, and hopefully he plays the way I think he can play, he could be a foundation piece to, build upon with Matt Rhule, whereas like, he's a guy that was here before. Oh, he got the most out of him. And then next thing you know, you're talking about Jamari Butler, having a pretty good year.
Absolutely. So, I mean, we are fans who like to jump right in and drink the Kool-Aid. Are you buying in? Like, what's your prediction for next year, realistically?
I mean, I'm not a big Kool-Aid drinker. I think in the off season, we haven't played football since right after Thanksgiving, which was great. Anytime that you can beat Iowa, that's good, because it hadn't been to. First of all, I had a great time on Facebook. One of my good friends is an Iowa fan. I literally spent the next 6 days checking in on him because he didn't know how to handle the loss. And also, I want to say, Mickey Joseph and staff did a really good job of setting Matt Rhule up and staff up with the culture change. You know what I mean? On the fly. I think next year you're going to see some good things from this team, and it's going to be a byproduct of that, and then Matt Rhule adding on to it. So whether he gives credit, I want to give credit to it. As far as the record, I think they're going to win. I'd expect 6 or more wins. 7-5, 8-4. I think it's a unique year to kind of have a good record with the amount of turnover in the Big Ten West. And I'm talking about turnover, not only the coaching, changes at Purdue and Wisconsin, and Brett Bielema is still young or still new at Illinois. Northwestern is really struggling. So really it's Iowa and Minnesota, but it's also identity changes at Purdue and Wisconsin. You know what I'm saying? So Brom and his play calling is gone, his quarterback's gone, and their number one receiver. Walters is maybe going to change it to more Illinois. Wisconsin's trying to go to more pass and kind of like Cincinnati. It takes time, right? So if you have a good offseason, what hopefully Nebraska's doing, you can get some wins, and then you're talking about culture. Then you're gonna you think fans are gonna really really want it like right now. Then the Kool-Aid ain't just gonna be like 10 liters or 10 fluid ounces. It's gonna be gallons of Kool-Aid out there. So I think it's a good year to step out. They got to get out to a good start, challenge against Minnesota, but I think that the rest of that non-conference is pretty good, and the home games after Michigan and the schedule sets up to kind of catch some rhythm if you stub your toe versus, I remember when they played Michigan, then they played Minnesota, then they played Ohio State, then they played Iowa. It was like, hey, you going through the meat grinder.
Right.
Schedule and opportunity sets up for Nebraska this year.
Absolutely. We love to hear it. Last thing we want to talk to you about is a little bit about your NFL experience. What was it like getting drafted? Can you take us through like that entire process?
Man, I'll tell you what, if I had to do it again, I might have left my junior year, man. I didn't know, to be honest with you, these guys come in and talk about the NFL as freshmen. They shouldn't. But I didn't think about the NFL really until the last play I played at Nebraska. I kind of felt like, hey, I started here for 4 years. I've played against NFL players, done well. I'll get a chance, But, really, if I went out my junior year, there wasn't a lot of linebackers. I came out my senior year, and there was a lot of linebackers. But, I went to the combine, tested out well, ran like a 4.63, 36-inch vertical. And I was projected anywhere from second to 5th round. So as soon as I heard that second to 5th round, I'm only focusing on the 2nd round. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't focusing on the 6th round. And so the first 3 rounds was the first night, and I knew I wasn't going first round. So I was just chilling, down there. I was actually in Frederick, Maryland with all my family. 2nd round comes, and I kind of knew who I interviewed with and interviewed well that needed linebackers. Didn't get drafted. The Ricky Williams trade kind of messed up the whole draft. 3rd round came, and I'd interviewed with the Carolina Panthers and the Eagles, I think like 4 times in Cleveland. Worked me out and everything. I'm like, oh, them 3 places I'm going. All undrafted linebackers except for Carolina. Carolina called me after the 3rd round. Was like, we're going to draft your linebacker coach. Yeah, actually, Sam Mills like, I want you. You my guy. And, they drafted somebody else. And then I wanted to go to the Redskins, at the time, where the Commanders now, because that's where I'm from. And they drafted somebody else. And I was like, oh, man, I don't even know. Then I'm like, F the NFL. I don't even want to play, because I'm going late, And then there's 2 places I didn't want to go. Right now, this is dumb of me. Now I played at Nebraska. I'm thinking like I want to go play where there's sun at, and there's 2 places I didn't interview: Green Bay and Buffalo. Everywhere else I interviewed, right? So I'm like, cool. There's a 2 places they didn't interview me. They were kind of stacked at linebacker. I'm good. Everybody should, who wants, should want a linebacker. Man, I'm late in the 5th round. Man, I don't care if the Martians, were coming to draft me. I was ready to go. I had a cell phone, and an uncle of mine had called and asked me, like, why you ain't getting drafted? I was like, dude, I got to go. Well, anyways, 716 came up on my cell phone. I had a Nextel at that time. And I was like, 716? I don't know that number. Just answered it. It was Buffalo. It was the best feeling ever, man. I mean, I broke out in tears. My dad was excited. And it was great to be drafted. They were stacked at linebacker, but I came in and carved my way out or way in the league, and it was the best thing for me. They played me a lot in the preseason, learned a lot, played special teams. And next thing you know, somebody got hurt, then I end up starting for, the next 6 years. So as disappointed as I was to go, I guess, later than I thought I should, I was extremely motivated to go into Buffalo and prove myself. So I think it's no different than Nebraska, right? Kind of getting overlooked, make it, and I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Those are the best stories. That's awesome.
Yeah, so kind of talking about like the hardship and kind of like the didn't really get drafted like where you wanted to round wise. What was your biggest like I made it moment in the NFL?
Well, I guess when you played your first game, a real game, not preseason. I mean, nobody gets drafted where they want, generally if you don't go number one. But I felt like I proved over my career I probably should have went a little higher. So, I think that's a good thing to hang my hat on. But it was probably we played up in Seattle. And I ran down on kickoff, and actually I got my bell rung, got my head knocked off. So that was my aha moment. All right, I'm in the league, but I think it was my first start, and really doing well. And then, what really happened for me was playing consistently for a couple of games. And really, to be honest with you, Ralph Wilson, when he used to come into the locker room, he would have to look up and see who, whose name that was in the locker, right? He didn't know who I was. Then it became he knew who I was. And then I never lost that confidence. You know what I mean? Like, I know I can play at this level, because you're always kind of wondering. And then once you get that validation within yourself, then the sky's the limit.
That's awesome. My last question for you is something that I've just been thinking a lot about lately. Were contract debates as big of a deal then as they are now? Like, obviously the NFL, it's a whole year-long movie, I feel like.
Right. Yeah, I didn't have any social media to scrub them off of social media. The best thing I could have done with Buffalo was throw away a couple little like shorts that they had, to make that, let them know I'm mad, send it back to them, after a workout. But no, the CBA wasn't as strong. The ability to make money and influence the fans and the sponsors outside of football. It was the only guys that got any money outside of the contracts was quarterbacks, because those are the guys you saw without your helmet. So it's a totally different. I always tell people, look, when I got to Buffalo, they gave me a pack of gum and a smack on the butt and said, "Welcome to Buffalo." They gave me a big contract. And, when I was tendered, it was a 5th round tender, which was the low tender. So, you had to prove it. And, it's a different game now, but, I'm happy for these guys to get paid. But definitely, if I was in this time, I'd be strategic about how I'm going to, have longevity and make as much money as possible, the NFL. And that's what you see a lot of guys doing. I remember Kyler Murray, when he was up for his contract, he took the Arizona Cardinals off of his social media. Next thing you know, a month later, he gets a huge contract that obviously he has underperformed for. So, different positions get paid. I was a linebacker. So, it was kind of like, if you're not Ray Lewis, Junior Seau, or those type of guys, you kind of had to tread water softly, right? Whereas now you start, and if I played at the level that I played now, you can kind of pick and choose how it goes. You got a lot more bargaining power. So it's a lot different, but look, as times have changed, the NFL is huge, right now. And I think the NBA was probably there. Jordan was still around, Shaq and Kobe, so NFL's really taken off.
Yep. You got any more?
That's all I got.
All right, Jay, this has been awesome. I was gonna say, if you dust off the rust on the clubs, maybe we could get around in soon.
All right, man. Hey, I'm gonna hold you to it, man. I like that. Listen. It might not be good golf, but it'll be a good time.
Hey, we love it.
I can promise you, it's good. We're gonna have fun. Golf, not so much. Hey, you're on for it, man. Especially after a day like today, I'm gonna hold you to it, man. And if I see you in the morning, man, we'll definitely or at the gym. We'll have to go get our little bro pump on, get some arm curls in or something.
Sure. I'm 100% in. Well, this has been awesome. Thank you so much, Jay. We really appreciate you coming on, and we'll see you later, man.
All right, dudes. Take it easy.
Yep. Appreciate it. All right. Thank you, Jay Foreman. What a legend.
Yeah, that's a guy who just everything. He loves Husker football.
Yeah. And he's just the guy.
Yeah. He's just a guy like you just want to have a conversation with.
Mm-hmm. Play around with.
Play a quick round.
Hopefully we can play around with him soon.
Yeah.
But yeah, shout out Jay. Thank you for coming on. We appreciate it. 2 men today. Not a ton to talk about, so we're just going to jump into recap of the Final Four of the National Championship game. Where do you want to start?
I guess FAU, San Diego State.
Yeah, it was all these games just blend together in my mind.
I didn't see that game coming.
Because FAU was up by like 14 in the second half, I think.
Yeah.
And SDSU came back. FAU was just a good team.
Yeah,
and I had them out in the first round.
I did too.
So that's March for you.
And FAU almost didn't. There was like a kind of a 50-50 call. I think it was on a jump ball against Memphis.
Yes.
They called the jump ball.
Yep.
FAU gets it.
I got screwed in that game.
Yeah, so I mean, if they don't call a jump ball, or if Memphis gets it, if possession arrows to Memphis, FAU doesn't get there, and then who knows what we get in the final. They
hit a buzzer beater.
Yeah.
To win that game. So, I mean, that's just March. Like, a team can get hot, and I know we were talking about this earlier, but, that's the beauty of March.
Yeah, with 68 teams, it's hard. Like, I came away from this March Madness tournament not knowing who the 4 best teams were.
Mm-hmm.
I think UConn beats most teams in the other side of their bracket, on the same side of their bracket as well as on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you get like an Alabama who plays out like a good Brandon Miller, a healthy Alabama team. I think UConn beats almost all of those teams.
Yeah. But
it's just, you don't really know. Some years, you don't know who the best teams were.
Mm-hmm.
I would much rather have the 68-team format than go down teams or add more teams. I think adding more, there's just more chances that you walk away from it saying, did we get the best 4 games?
Yep.
Because, I mean, the title game was a snooze fest.
It was.
I didn't watch all of it.
It was not a good game.
I was like, I'm not going to lose sleep over UConn. Just seeing how much UConn wins by.
And I knew this tournament was going to be like this because there were teams that were very good. Alabama was very good. Houston was very good. Purdue was dropping at the end, but at one point they were very good.
Yeah.
But there were no teams that you could tell were going to run away with the tournament.
Right.
And so that's why, I mean, I really like the tournament this year. I know some people, have the opposite opinion, but it's fun when in sports, normally there's teams that are always going to be there, and it's cool when, anything can happen.
Yeah, I think it was a good tournament because we had a 15, we had a 16. It was an entertaining tournament is what I should say. I don't know. I didn't love how it ended. I don't know. I like when you get I would love it, like, it's going to sound like boring, but I would love the 4-1 seeds. If those are actually the 4 best teams, I would love to see who, are the 4 best teams that the committee agreed on.
Yeah.
But I know that's not basketball. It's not played on a spreadsheet. So I think it was entertaining. I think UConn, I would have walked away very disappointed if it was SDSU, I think. Just because in order for them to win, UConn would have had to play horrible.
Mm-hmm.
And I would have walked away saying there's just no way that that's the best team that would beat all 67 other teams.
I feel like there hasn't been that much of a dominant performance by a team in March in a while.
Yeah, didn't they win all of their games by double digits?
Yeah, just killed everyone. And none of the games were even really close.
No. So, it's hard to say that they weren't the best team.
Mm-hmm.
Because, they were a 4 seed?
4 or 5, yeah. 4, I think.
So, I mean, it's not like a 12 seed won it that just got super hot in March.
Right.
I mean, I'm happy with it. I don't agree with the take of, that it's a bad system or, a bad format. Because with obviously that many teams, you get a team that gets hot that comes out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
An FAU who was good all year. Nobody heard about them because they're in Conference USA.
Right.
But I mean, they lost 4 games all year. So it's hard to say like they weren't a good team.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. We kind of knock college football playoff because there's only 4 teams. But outside of 1 or 2 other teams, typically you're getting the 4 unanimous best teams.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Which I don't love the 4-team playoff because I think more often than not, there's at least 6 to 8 teams that are deserving of going to the playoffs. So I wouldn't say, we need to cut it down to, 16 teams.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely don't want more just because I get it's more basketball. It's more games in March. But I think then you start getting into obviously I would have loved Nebraska to make a run in, the tournament.
Right.
But I mean, if Nebraska makes a Final Four like this year, I mean, it was a great year. They got hot, but I would have been like, was Nebraska really the 4th best team in the country? Probably not.
Right.
So I don't know. I don't think it's something where we need to change anything. I don't think it's like a bad system. Just
that's the tradition of March. Like that Thursday, Friday is the best day in sports.
Right.
Just because you have so much going on. Anything can happen. Literally, and this year, anything can happen.
Yeah.
Like FDU beats Purdue. Like, just stories like that are awesome.
It is.
Gonna miss it.
Yeah. I don't know. Like I said, wouldn't change it for.
My only complaint about March is I don't like how after the, what is it? I guess between the Elite 8 and the Final 4, there's like almost a week off. Because I get in basketball mode where I'm watching basketball all day.
And then there's
Thursday,
only a couple
Friday.
games.
Then, it cuts down. The Sweet 16 is still fine because there's still 4 games in a day.
Right.
And then when you get that week off, I started to lose interest a little bit.
Yeah. Because, I mean, that Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
It's
Sunday.
like a adrenaline high.
Yeah.
And then you get it taken away. And it's like, this
Yeah.
sucks.
I
think they should cut the week down.
I do too. Because I also don't think it should ever be. College sports should never be played on a Monday.
Yes.
Because all year, I guess college basketball, they have games on Mondays. But, meaningful games aren't on Mondays. It's the same with college football. You don't play a single college football game on a Monday. Why is the national championship on? And, worst case scenario happened with, TV rights, I feel like, this year. Because you had UConn Eastern time.
Yeah.
San Diego State Pacific time.
Right.
It was an 8:20 tip-off.
That was late for me. I was like, oof.
That's because I saw people on Twitter complaining about how it's too late for people on the East Coast. Or how, if you played it at, 7, that's 5 o'clock on the West Coast, San Diego State. Those people are just getting off work. So those people are either having to, miss part of the day or miss part of the game.
I didn't think about that, yeah.
But the problem with the start on Eastern time is UConn fans now have to stay up till midnight. Obviously, if your team's going to win a national championship,
you don't care.
You don't care. But if a UConn fan stays up and then loses and it's now midnight,
and they have to go to work,
and you're probably not in the best state to just go right to bed because
yeah.
you just lost a national championship.
Maybe under the influence a little bit.
Yeah, you're not. That 6 o'clock alarm hits because traffic, and there you're not getting to work.
Terrible. No.
So, I don't know. Even if it's on a Sunday, because you can play it, you can still play it at 7.
Yeah.
Central, because people aren't at work on a Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. I think that might have been. I would love to. I don't know what the ratings were, but I don't know. I didn't think SDSU was the second best team this year.
Yeah. Yeah. The boys down bad bracket, possibly worse than last year.
It was bad.
It was. We've done it 2 years, and they've both been terrible. So hopefully next year we get a little better.
I think next year I might not fill out a personal bracket until we do the boys down bad bracket.
Do the opposite.
Well, more because I get, like, this year I was it's Alabama. If it's not Alabama, it's, it's Creighton or it's somebody else. I just go into it with such, like, a closed mindset of I filled out 3 brackets already, and it's been either Alabama or somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
So then I'm like, well, I come into this thinking I think it's Alabama.
Yeah.
So I have to convince everybody else that
Yeah.
it's Alabama. So maybe
That's
next
true.
year we, everybody, you got to do the bracket right away on Sunday. But let's try and limit the brackets we do on Sunday.
Yeah.
Come in with a little bit more open mind.
I agree.
Because I fell into the Alabama trap.
Yeah. Chris did too.
Yeah. So we
yeah.
apologize. It wasn't perfect.
It wasn't perfect, but good tournament. It was fun. I guess we should talk a little bit about the Masters. It'll be going on when this episode airs.
Yep.
Just briefly, you have a couple picks for the people?
Yeah. I mean, it's hard not to say Scotty Scheffler, Rory, or John Rahm. I think it's Rory. I think he's figured out the putter. I think he's figured out the driver. If you want to get wild and take a live guy, I think it's Cam Smith.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think the 54-hole going to 72-hole fatigue is going to really happen. He was really the only guy that you can say left at his peak to go to live.
Yep.
And then I like Max Homa, Justin Thomas, Jordan Spieth, like top 5, top 10s.
Yep.
Just kind of, I don't think, we were kind of talking about it before. It's kind of like if you just take the top 20 guys, put them on a dartboard, throw a dart, you have just as good of a chance.
Yeah, the Masters is a tournament where typically, a blue blood type player is probably going to win.
Yeah.
Even when Hideki won, like he's really
a really good player.
Yeah. So you're not going to – the Flyers aren't going to hit very often at the Masters.
Yeah,
So
because I was just talking to Court, and I was like, I don't think we're going to see like a Mito Pereira be in the mix at Augusta, where at Southern Hills he was able to kind of make his way. Augusta is just not a place. I don't think it's going to be anybody who's like it's their first time, so that wipes out, 5 to 10 guys.
mm-hmm.
I think it's probably not your second or third Masters either. And it's like we were just kind of talking before, you have to drive the ball very straight. You have to hit it both, like draw and fade it, hit it far. You have to be able to putt really well. So it's like you just have to be a really good golfer to win.
You just have to be a good golfer to win at Augusta.
Yeah. So it's like all of these guys are good golfers because they're professionals. But I love Kevin Kisner, but I don't think he can even get it around the trees on 13.
Yeah.
To have a chance. And I feel like there are just certain holes where you have to be a guy who can hit it really long and hit it both ways.
You have to be a Bryson DeChambeau who said par 67.
Yeah, he's slimmed down.
He has. Because he was having stomach issues.
Yeah, and then he had
All
the
those
wrist
proteins.
thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's weird. Like, I don't think it's as weird as I thought it was going to be with the live guys.
Yeah, it'll be interesting if one of them wins. How the golf world takes it.
I think Norman said that if a live golfer wins it, because there's 18 total live guys there, all 17 will be there to congratulate him. And I said, if Phil misses the cut, there's no chance he stays in Augusta, Georgia.
Yeah, no way.
He's getting on the first flight home.
Yep.
Same with like Brooks. If Brooks misses the cut, he's not staying.
No. I hate that. I wouldn't want him to.
No.
That would be dumb.
Unless you're on like their team, because they're all on teams. Like,
yeah.
Then I'd be like, all right, if I'm a Brooks Koepka, I don't know who else is on his team, but say like Cam Smith is. If Cam Smith wins, maybe I stay because Cam Smith is making me money.
Yeah.
That's the only thing is like, if one of your teammates is going to win, you're profiting off of them every single week.
Yeah, but you also lost to your teammate.
Yeah.
That's just the thing with golf. It's not a team sport. It never will be.
Yeah.
Except for Ryder Cup and Presidents.
Right. But I don't know. I just don't see like a flyer. Like if I'm going to take a flyer, it's going to be Tiger Woods. Like,
yeah, just for fun.
Yeah. I just like in other majors where if a course suits somebody's game like really well, you can take a flyer. Like I feel like at the Open, if a guy hits it really straight and putts it really well,
yeah,
they can win there because you don't have to do everything perfect. You can kind of get away with some stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess it's going to be a blue blood guy. And, like, I guess if it's going to be a flyer, it might as well be Tiger because
Yeah.
he's either going to miss the cut or he's going to be in contention.
Would you classify Max Homa as a flyer?
I think he's right on the line. I'd probably say yes because he doesn't have a major.
He's playing so well right now. It's like,
Yeah. I guess that's probably the flyer.
I think his confidence
If you
is
consider
extremely high.
if you consider Homa a flyer, then that's who I would take.
Yeah,
I didn't even think of him
I
as
like
a flyer
Homa. Yeah, he is right on the line, I think. But
because he's top 10 in the world. I would assume. If not,
it's a good question. Wish we had a fact check guy.
yeah.
That'd be nice.
But yeah, I mean, it's probably gonna be one of those three guys. I think it's hard to repeat. I would love to see Rory because he'd get the Grand Slam then.
Mm-hmm. We're approaching the end of an all-time sports run for the year because we had Super Bowl into March Madness, now the Masters. After this, it's gonna drop off a little bit.
Yeah. So
soak it in.
if you know anybody who might be a good guest, if you've got any connections,
Mm-hmm.
let us know.
Yeah.
Or else we're gonna get it's not gonna be a lot of sports.
Yeah, maybe we should have some more like pop culture guests.
Good.
Maybe skis.
That'd be great. Maybe a Will Compton.
If Will Compton wants to come on, he's more than welcome.
Correct.
So,
Or maybe Jay Foreman gets some other guys.
yeah, who knows? Our buddy Jay.
Yeah.
Should we do roulette? Finish
Yeah.
the show?
I'm gonna go with 24, obviously. Trevin has 35. Chris has 20. Tommy did not give a number. So he, I guess, is ineligible. So that just leaves you.
Here we go.
Come on, 24.
2.
25. Oh, 25. That sucks. That would have my second.
Was one away from 2. One spot away from 2. Classic. Dang it.
That's tough. Should we?
The pot increases.
Yeah. Not going to send what number it was. We'll see who responds on Friday of the boys to see who watched the episode.
Of what boys? Oh, of the boys.
The boys.
Okay. I like that.
We'll just see
what happens.
who watches the whole thing.
All right. Thank you again to Jay Foreman. Awesome
Yeah.
dude. Legend.
Really good interview.
Really good interview. Anything else?
Stories.
Yeah. Great stories.
That's all I got.
All right.
Let's just hope for a good tournament. We're gonna get a blue blood.
Yep. Another one of my favorite weeks of the year.
Yeah, it's another elite Thursday, Friday,
Yep.
and then we'll be listening to it on Saturday.
And then Sunday. Easter Sunday. Happy Easter too.
Happy Easter.
Happy Easter.
Easter is one that always just comes up.
Sneaks up on you.
Yeah, I did not know it was Easter Sunday until about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. When we signed up for that scramble, I didn't realize it was the weekend of
I did
Easter.
not either.
Had no clue.
Nope.
That's on us.
Yeah, it's also on Easter.
Yeah, how dare Easter sneak up on us like that?
Just set a day. Feel like Christmas.
Yeah,
Time.
it is what it is. Time's a crazy thing. All right. This is the Boys Down Bad podcast. I'm Dylan.
Peters.
Have yourselves a top 10 weekend.